All right, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about arguments. Okay, this is going to be another structural based lesson. I know you guys hate that, but very, very necessary. You need structure on this test. It's a huge part of my strategy. Okay, when you are in the test, part of your job, right, revolves around breaking down the stimulus and critically analyzing it. Okay, that is in fact your job, right? That's your main job, is breaking down the stimulus and critically analyzing what you have and how these statements relate to each other. Okay. A lot of the time, this revolves around abstract concepts or situations given to you in a stimulus, okay? What I do when I'm presented with these abstract concepts, when I'm presented with these situations that kind of throw off my footing, is I fall back on structure, okay? Like I said in the grammar lesson, structure is something that will always be present, okay? There are certain structural elements that if you are looking for them, they will always be present in every stimulus. Now I want to talk a little bit about test taking, okay? So I'm going to give you a little bit of background about me. All right, I was a tutor for the SAT and the ACT and the GRE before I moved on to the LSAT and found my true love in this test, okay? So I know a lot about standardized test taking just kind of in general besides the LSAT, right? Now, what I've seen from my students who are taking the LSAT all the way up to the MCAT or the bar exam is that we are taught throughout high school, throughout college, whatever formal education you've gotten since like the 5th grade on how to take tests in a certain way, and that's very content-based, okay? Do you know something or do you not know something, all right? The LSAT is not one of those tests, and yet because we spent so much time developing that approach, okay, and being tested that way, it's really hard to get ourselves out of it now, okay? Any course is going to try and give you a strategy to adopt instead of that, okay? But when you add pressure, when you add the funky things that LSAT gives you, what does almost every student do, okay? They end up reverting back to their baseline way of just taking tests, their baseline way of approaching these questions, which is most definitely incompatible with the standardized test-taking strategies. Okay, so part of my goal in working with you guys is to change your intuition. In fact, I would say that's my main goal. That's the main goal in buying a course or hiring a private tutor. You want them to change your mindset, your intuition, the way you first think about something when you read it. Okay, there are tons and tons of free resources online to walk through practice tests and logic games and teach you how to read. Okay, but what you want is an individualized approach to changing the way that you think. Okay, and this lesson is going to really help in building that foundation. We want together to change what you revert back to when you're presented with something screwy. We don't want you to revert back to that crappy way of test taking that we learned in undergrad. We want you to fall back on these elements that we're going to show you now today. Okay? So first up, what is an argument? Okay, arguments make up the majority of LSAT logical reasoning questions. Right? We have two different stimuli forms that we can be presented with. We either have argument-based or we have fact-based. Okay, I'm going to show you an example of one real quick. It says all Americans like McDonald's. Alex is an American, therefore Alex likes McDonald's. Okay, this is an argument because we have the first two sentences backing up or providing evidence for why we should accept that third statement. Okay, these statements, they back something up. They're called a premise. All right, let's define that. What do I mean when I say the word premise? Okay, a premise is a statement that is providing evidence for another statement. It's just kind of a fancy, pretentious word for evidence. Okay, now what about the conclusion? How does LSAT define a conclusion? A conclusion is a statement supported by all other statements, okay? And then the main conclusion is a statement that is supported by all other statements and does not support another statement itself. Okay, which introduces us to the idea of an intermediate or a secondary conclusion, okay? You can have a conclusive statement, a statement that is backed up by another statement, but it also supports something else, okay, such as this little diagram I have here, okay? That is not the main conclusion. Main conclusions, the identify the conclusion question type is one of the first things we study. One of the main things that trip students up are these intermediate conclusions, okay? The main conclusion cannot support anything else. It has to be supported by everything else. Okay? Now let's take a look at another example. Palm Springs, California is hot most of the year. Juneau, Alaska is cold most of the year, and Miami, Florida is nice most of the year. Okay? So we have no argument there because we have no conclusion presented to us. We just have a series of facts or assertions with no real overarching umbrellaed conclusion coming in based on them. I never go in there and express any kind of opinion, like, therefore I would like to live in Miami because it's nice. Okay, that's not there. So we cannot insert it. okay? Deciding between these two different argument forms should always be your first step when you're in a logical reasoning question. Do I have an argument or do I have a set of facts? Okay, and that's loosely how we break up the question types in logical reasoning, okay? It's question types that revolve around stimulus with facts and question types that revolve around an argument, a stimulus that has a conclusion and a premise, okay? Now let's take a look at a couple of practice questions and practice really identifying which type of stimulus we have. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video for us to do that.